welcome. Here we are. First episode of a series. I've been putting off a YouTube series for a while, so I figured I might as well start one. I kind of want to talk about a few different things today. I think I'd jump in with the draft. I'm really excited for this year's crop. I think at the top we got some pretty big studs here. So if you look at the top of the draft so far, we're about 15 picks in at the time of this recording, or 19 picks in, I guess. Toronto just picked there. Looks like we got quite a bit of beast players go on the top here, so I'll just start one by one. First overall, Seattle went with Lewis and E.L. Shepard, who looks like Ronald Acuna. The guy has a right field profile, 75 hit tool. I got a heavily favored tool scout, 60 home run power. The big thing with him is he already looked like a top 10 to top 20 pick about a month ago. I had a huge scouting report that had his current eye go up 10. If you look at the 35 to 45 eye, makes a monster difference. It essentially means he already has almost a major league level approach at the plate. So now he just needs his power to come along, and that usually comes last with the contact. The scout thinks he has a 75 hit tool. So essentially this is a guy that looks like he could be a 300 hitter with major power, major gap power, major speed, and solid runner, a true five-tool player in every sense of the word. So that guy at $7 million gives Seattle another superstar in the outfield where their best player already is Jared Kelenic. So that combo could be deadly in a few years. Kelenic's pretty young still. So that was a nice, beautiful pick there. The second pick was, I'll search them here one by one. Randolph, the pitcher, looks like he has a nice nickname there, Anvil. So the guy's got 35, 60 in all three categories, essentially. Really, really plus current movement and a killer fastball. The big question with him is he going to be a starter with that 30-50 curveball he's really waiting on? It doesn't look like the change will ever be there, but that fastball is deadly at 55-75. That's a top tier fastball with electric stuff. So that's a really high ceiling 101 mile an hour thrower with that kind of junk movement there. That's a guy that's going to be brutally big strikeout guy. So yeah, if you can get that curveball, that really is what it all comes down to. But 30-50 is pretty good. It's not like it's a 20-50 or 25 even, but 30 means that has a pretty good shot of coming along. So that guy looks like a real high-end guy, power pitcher. And worst case scenario, you just throw him in the bullpen with those two pitches, and he's a deadly fastball slider bullpen guy that is just ruthless against right-handed hitters there. So that's a nice pick there too with the high-end guy for Cleveland there. Andy Bruce was our third pick here. Andy Bruce is kind of the same as the last guy where he has two really advanced pitches with an elite fastball, and the third pitch is kind of the question mark. His changeup is 25-60 where the last guy's was 30-60 as the third pitch. So the only difference here is this guy is probably even more advanced currently. This guy has about the same ceiling, a little higher, but he does have that fragile tag and $8 million, so it probably came down. But they're very similar players. That is a crazy movement from a college guy. The guy's just needs a little bit of stuff, which is probably, since he's so far away, and that slider and changeup is where that stuff's lacking. If he can get to those pitches, though. But same as last guy, it's not that big a risk because worst case scenario, you just stick with the fastball slider combo. So it really is just kind of like a groundhog day for that last guy there. So those two picks are really similar. Minnesota snags Andy Bruce. They've gone with a lot of pitchers recently in last few draft classes. They've traded for some top position players. So Petey there, our boy, is really building up the farm with some high-end talent. So the first wild pick here is not wild in a bad way. I just meant wild as in wild talent. Is Chris Weatherington. Love the last name, Weatherington. So this is a lefty bat. Looks like a second baseman, but definitely can play some short at a solid level. But it also looks like he would be one of the best second basemen ever with that 75 turn double play and 80 air. Really can just play either or. It looks like he's going to Chicago where they have Bo Owensby, the other first overall pick, power middle infielder they took a couple years ago, who also has major plus power. This guy has everything you look for except for the eye, which doesn't really matter when you have a 75 hit tool with a 70 avoid K. This guy is very far from his ceiling, but his ceiling is the highest in the entire draft, in my opinion. Him or Planty, which we'll talk about later. Chris Weatherington, 75 contact with 70 gap power. That guy can hit 200 hits a season with 45 doubles and 20 home runs, and he can also run pretty solid. He can also play defense at an elite level. So this guy really is incredibly high ceiling, maybe the highest ceiling I remember in the last 6 drafts from a pure draft perspective at the time of. Um, he's just insane. So it's just a lot of question marks as he's so far away. 21 years old, to be that far away from his power is a little scary. Um, that's the only question mark, but it doesn't really matter, same as the eye, or if he gets that power, because he's such an insane defensive and contact guy where he could still hit kind of with like an empty average ISO, and he not get to that power and still be a really productive player. Just comes down to that the mentals are a little tough to look at there with the low leadership and work ethic, but the ceiling's a little bit too high to pass on at this point. So Florida boy there too, University of Florida superstar. So yeah, that guy's just what an intriguing talent. We'll keep an eye on him over the next few years. Bobby Geary is the next pick here, going to the Cincinnati Reds. Bobby Geary is another guy who I just love the advanced current profile. There are a lot of older pitchers going here. None of those high ceiling high school guys. These guys are really developed. This guy's a lefty. He had incredible, one of the craziest scouting reports I've ever seen. That could just be my scout. Doesn't look like he was super wrong because he was already a high. That wasn't the previous report wasn't like an average or low or even very low. That was already a high. So it doesn't look like my scout was just way off. It looks like he really did just have one of the craziest improvements I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of 10 plus 10s current stuff go from like 40 to 50 or even like 15. The odd 20. But to have a guy go up 25 current stuff in one report, gained in a lot of other areas too. The stamina went up. Control went up, which is the most important part. 30 to 35 is a huge jump. The movement went from 50 to 60, and potential stuff obviously taking that jump too. It just makes that really intriguing. He has the best pitch in the draft, an 80 grade current circle change, which if you look at those 3 pitches, he looks like Clayton Kershaw, an over the top 75 curveball with a crazy change in fastball. I mean, this guy is just freaky. That 30 to 35 control bump really helps. 30 control from a 22-year-old isn't quite what you want to see, but as soon as they get to 35, they're well on their way there to becoming major league average. Is essentially with how electric his stuff is and how good his pitches are, and he's a ground ball guy. And that movement's so high that as long as that control can get to even just 40, he could be like a Michael Kopech. 45, make him like a really solid number 2, like 3 WAR guy. And if that can really get to that 45, 50, he looks like an ace. That is probably the most electric lefty in the league in the future, just with how good that 3-pitch quality is. Really hurts Toronto not being able to sign him in the second round last year and then going and seeing that massive jump. That really kind of stings, but that's why it's important to keep that payroll so you don't miss out on guys like that. So that's a huge get for Cincinnati there. Cincinnati has a ton of position players, and I just realized that Morjon there is a lefty too. So having Bobby Geary and Morjon as lefties on that staff in the future is going to be nasty as Morjon's locked up for the long term there. So that's another really cool pick. A couple of really advanced pitchers going off the board here early. 6th overall, we have Josh Thrifty Davidson. Josh Davidson is a really similar profile to the guy we just talked about, but the righty version. And he has one more pitch, 25-50 changeup, which is questionable, but probably has better than a 30% chance to develop. At least he has an incredible fastball, high leadership, throws 101. He's an extreme ground ball guy that has electric stuff. So this guy is just a little bit lower of a current ability than the other guys, not quite as developed just because that control is so low. But if he hits, he's going to hit hard. So that's kind of one of those high ceiling, low floor type guys. But yet again, just like almost all the pitchers I mentioned so far, has a really good backup plan there as a bullpen guy if he can't really get that control under wraps, and could still just be a really solid electric arm bullpen guy with 70 stuff and 60 movement potential. So again, not too risky, even though you'd think it would be with that 25 control. So that's a good pick for Miami there. At 7 overall, we have Ralph Plant. Ralph Plant is like Weatherington early, almost the same profile, right down to the kind of weak mentals. and low I, and the incredible contact power tool. So if you compare him, nice little feature on Out of the Park, if you guys don't know, is the compare player feature. And then you can look at the recently visited players. So if you compare here on the left, we got Ralph Plant, and then Weatherington on the right. So if you look, they have really similar potentials here. Like we just talked about, really similar profile, but one's a right fielder and one's like a shortstop, second baseman. Both have insane contact and gaps potentials there, bright blue, as you see. Both have the 60 home run power potential. Big difference here is probably the I potential is quite a bit higher for Plant, even though it's still not even close to really like a major league average level thing. But the eye doesn't hurt you as much when the contact's so good. You avoid K. So there's just going to be some quicker at bats, but he's also such a good contact guy, it doesn't hinder him. And you see there a lot of similarities. The gap power versus righty, big difference there. What do we got here? Lefty bat on both sides, but looks like Weatherington has quite a bit more gap power versus righties. And then if you look down here, the big difference is Plant's a little bit better of an outfielder speed-wise, but both about the same defensively, both like 60 range guys. So that's really, really high-end guy. If you look here, his batting average in high school in grade 11 and 12 is 587 and 554. One of the craziest things I've ever seen is that 1.9% strikeout rate with almost a 500 ISO. That's some poor competition there playing in Ontario high school baseball. But still, a guy that hits 587, that's some Barry Bonds type shit. Just ridiculous. Next up, we have Dave Moy Inahan. Didn't spell that right. Let's just go with Dave Moy. That'll come up still. We got the Detroit Tigers go with another lefty. I feel like the lefties are getting bumped up here quite a bit because there's a very weak lefty class, in my opinion. There's only about 3 guys I had graded above a second round, where there's about triple that in righties or quadruple that at least. I think actually I'm way off on that. I think it's like 6 times. I think I got like 15 righties in the top 2 rounds. So the lefties are getting bumped up. So Moynihan probably isn't quite as good as those top righties right now, but he's also a lot better than the drop-off in lefties. So that really a supply and demand thing there. That is really nice lefty profile there with 55 stuff, crazy stamina, high hold. He's intelligent on the right side, as you see, and the really nasty combo of the fastball, forkball being super developed brings you yet another 22-year-old in this draft with some nice advanced current stuff. So that's another one there I like. John Milton is our next pick here. I think the pitcher version went. And he has 55 movement. So Milton went to Kansas City. Our commissioner there loves those junk ballers, as he mentions multiple times. Here's another lefty getting bumped up. Like I said, those lefties coming off the board quick because there's not too many good ones. We got a Wichita State, Kansas homegrown guy here. Well, not really. He's a little Cali boy, but he went back to the Midwest, which is awesome to see. John Milton has pretty nasty profile if he can reach that stuff and control, because he's just got so many pitches there and lefty profile, and he's not going to let up many home runs and an extreme ground ball guy. So be interesting to see how well that guy develops there. Next up, we have probably the next big bat. There's the 3 big bats in this draft that have the crazy contact power ratios, and they are all already gone by pick 10 here in Oakland Athletics there. Ray going with Chris Tigner. Chris Tigner looks like he's a left fielder with 65 speed, 75 contact, 55 power. The guy's got all the tools you need. Yet another 5-tool guy. Not too shabby there. Another guy with just the eye lacking. Is you see a big similarity in all 3 of those guys so far that went. The Weatherington Plant pick and then Chris Tigner, all with those 25 eyes. But all 3 of them have the 70 contact and plus. So they're all, just kind of repeat myself from earlier, the same profile as those other 2 guys. Tigner's just pretty much right in that same group with them. Just an electric talent there. Major bat on ball skills and some huge ISO potential with a 70 gap and 55 home run power with that elite contact could really, those 3 guys definitely all have ceilings of like 5, 6, 7 WAR guys if they can reach the majors and develop to what the scout says they are. Next up at 11, we have Joe Morris, who went to St. Louis. I think Joe Morris was the pitcher that went. Let me just double check that. Yeah, the pitcher version went. A couple Joe Morrises in this draft. Pitcher has a nice profile with 3.5 pitches, I always consider those like 25-40, 25-45 is kind of like a half chance. I have seen in my day quite a bit of changeups go from 25-40. 3 years later, all of a sudden you look and they're 50-55. So you can't always count them out. It's a lot better than not having that fourth pitch. But yeah, the odds are probably a little lower than 50%. But it doesn't really matter because those other three pitches are all major league quality. Electric slider, 45-70. Crazy, crazy profile with the 99-mile-an-hour fastball and a high adaptability is nice to see. Struggles a little bit with the hold and controls, but the only weaknesses this guy has. But that guy is a really, really nice pitcher with very, very good current stuff and movement, where it's almost major league ready. Guy just needs to get a little bit of a +10 in control there, and he'll look like a stud. So another advanced college pitcher. This draft's pretty loaded with those guys at the top. Our first high school pitcher goes next to Texas. Texas has a really talented squad for a team picking 12th overall with some unlucky injuries last year and kind of a down year. So to be able to add this guy to that nice young core they have is huge with a crazy high ceiling. This guy's got about the highest ceiling of the high school guys in the draft from the looks of it. My scout says got 70 control, but also has plus stuff and plus movement. This guy is just going to be one of those guys you have to be very slow on as he's very young and it has very far from his ceilings, but they are also very high. So it's got a guy you got to be really patient with. Probably won't see in the majors before 4 or 5 years, but you never know. With a guy that talented, he could have huge jumps pretty quickly. The really nice thing to see, you see a lot of things that are really low, 25, 30, which you usually get for those 17, 16-year-olds, 18-year-olds and stuff, the international kids too. But you do see the really advanced fastball, which really helps. Those 45 current fastballs really dominate in the lower minor, especially as a lefty. They can pretty much, that's saying this fastball is almost major league quality at like 50 major league average kind of thing for pitches. So the guy can just mow down rookie ball hitters and should really help, even though he only has those 2 pitches right now. 20 is very low in the current changeup, so you never know. But really high end, having a lefty high school guy with 70 control potential and plus in the other stuff with that kind of pitch quality. So just a really intriguing guy that with a super high ceiling and a low floor. We'll see how he develops. The next pick is probably my favorite pick so far. Is I was hoping you'd follow me. Is the LA Angels took Holmquist, the two-way player. Holmquist has 55 hit tool. That has a 35 current, which is one of the higher ones in the draft. Also has a plus I at 35 current. Has that 50 power potential. It's just really essentially 50s across the board. A little bit better than that in a couple with some major gap power. And he has a crazy 6-pitch profile, probably closer to 5. That changeup we'll see, but it doesn't really matter. That guy has a 60 outfield range, my scout says, but if you look at the USA rating here, it's 65. So that's a crazy guy that I was thinking was probably right fielder, but if that OSA is right, he could get a jump to 65. He could probably be a center fielder. And if he's a center fielder with that kind of bat, 50 power potential and 55 contact, he looks like a whale of a player. But then he's just as good as a pitcher with a 65 fastball, 6 pitches, has 4 of them, 3 of them already at 45s, and then a slider is pretty good too. That probably will develop. So he looks like he's probably, if he was just a pitcher, he'd probably still be taken about this area. And if he was just a hitter, he'd probably be a late first-round pick to mid-first-round pick. So essentially, you're getting 2 first-round picks in one. That's how good this guy is. He's not way better at one than the other. He's really that good at both things. Has a $5 million bonus, JUCO sophomore, just an early 21-year-old. So that guy has crazy profiles. Those guys are so nice because even if they don't develop in one of the 2, you can still, if he doesn't develop as a pitcher, you throw him as a hitter and vice versa. So what a whale of a talent there. Next pick, another one of my favorite guys in this draft I was hoping would fall to me is Jeremy Bailiff. Bailiff's got a 70 hit tool, 75 contact, pretty much essentially kind of like those top guys, just not quite the power ceiling, which is why he probably didn't go in the top 10 like those other 3 hitters we mentioned earlier, Tigner and Weatherington and Shepard. But Bailiff is not far behind. He's a center fielder. 40 power is not bad for a center fielder with that kind of hit tool. You could still probably get 15 home runs out of that, and depending on your park. He also has 65 stealings. That gives him a weapon. He had 36 stolen bases in only 49 high school games. Only a $1 million signed bonus, so that's huge. I didn't mention the team actually, sorry. So Baltimore took Bailiff. Baltimore has got a lot of nice young position players in the system now, so we'll see how they utilize all those, if they're going to keep them or send them in trades. This Bailiff guy is really nice, though. I really like that profile. As a 65 range center fielder with that kind of speed. Has a lot of tools, especially with guys. 45 current contact, by the way, is, yeah, like that guy could literally already hit singles at major league level and probably get by hitting 200. So he should be in the majors extraordinarily quick. Probably the closest to major league level of any position player in this draft. He could essentially play high A now and then double A next year and probably be in the majors by the end of his 22-year-old season easily, uh, and be like a defensive singles hitter. Just, it would be interesting to see if that 70 contacts legit. That guy hit just about 300 the last 2 years. Pretty low strikeout rate. So that guy's pretty nasty. I think next we got Greg Cook. Greg Cook went to Milwaukee. Greg Cook has really, really nice control. 40 overall already. The only weakness on him would be that low hold, but everything else looks really nice. He's a righty with a 50, 55, 60 profile. So that guy just has a really nice ceiling to be like a solid number 3. Doesn't really have that electric 70 fastball, like 60 stuff combo that some of the guys above him had, but he also has a lot better control than all the other guys. So just a little bit different style pitcher, but another really solid all around guy like Greg Cook there. Pitchers are just coming off the board here quite a bit in that first round. Another one here, we got Pedretti. Pedretti is 55 movement. He has a 75 curveball, struck out 42% of his batters in college last year. 3 really good pitches with a fourth pretty solid one. That 40 could develop pretty easily into a 50 and be a nice fourth pitch. He's a righty with extreme ground ball. And so just another guy that has 60, 65, 55, really plus in all the big 3 categories there. So they're a really electric guy with an awesome curveball, one of the best pitches in the draft. That guy went to Atlanta. Next up, we have Aiden Hughes going to New York, 17th overall. Aiden Hughes has the best control in the entire draft. He looked like a number 1 overall guy to me when I looked last month. His stuff went from, it was 60 at a point, I thought it said on my profile. But yeah, the OSA has him at 65 stuff. So if you look at the OSA, they think he's pretty much the best player in the draft. 30, 65 stuff. So he looks like a Shane Bieber with that 80 control and electric stuff combination. My scout has his stuff a tad lower. But he's also a high leader, so it's really, if he can get that changeup with 70 ceiling on that, there's a pretty good chance it develops, but also is only a 25 current. So that's a big question mark. I think if he gets that changeup, he probably will be a superstar ace. So we'll keep an eye on that changeup over the next few years and see how that develops. That guy is just a beast. I would love that draft pick there. The Yankees getting him with Phil Peters last year is an insane combo. In 3 years, wouldn't surprise me if Peters is winning a lot of batting titles there at first base, and then Hughes is trotting out there as their 4 or 5 WAR starting pitcher. Just crazy talent there they got. So Chris Escobar is the next pick. Escobar went to the White Sox at 18 overall. Escobar is amazing. Currently, he's probably the best pitcher in the draft with 40, 45, 40 currents. Very close to Major League ready with 60, 50, 65, kind of like a Garrett Cole type profile with an electric fastball, really good splitter. He probably just fell a little bit more than those guys in the top 5, 10 picks because that third pitch was so iffy. So yet another guy like we talked about earlier where he's just as a backup plan, he can just go use that electric 75 fastball in the bullpen. But he also has a crazy ceiling because he's so good already and his ceiling so high with that control and fastball. It's just another, it always comes down to this changeup with these pitchers, you know? Another guy with a 25, 55 changeup where if he develops that, he's an absolute stud. It's just really sometimes luck, sometimes some development things. So we'll keep an eye on the White Sox, yet another changeup. Question mark. Next, we got Danny Hines, who just went to the Blue Jays as the next pick and the only pick so far as of this time of recording. This is the final pick. San Francisco is still on the clock when I'm putting this video together. Danny Hines is a switch-hitting power outfielder who looks like kind of like a budget version of Torkelson. I think there's only 2 good guys that fit this profile in the draft with the 40 current and 60 potential power and eye combo. The other one is that AJ Fennell, the pitcher 2-way player. They both look about the same with 30 contact, 45 control. Hines is the switch hitter, though, which kind of bumps him up. Plus, he's a lot better of a defender, so he finds himself in the first round because there just isn't too many guys in the draft that have a 45, 65 power tool. The guy has a $5 million bonus and loves to hit bombs, so we'll just see how he develops there. Nice little pick. So that's it for the draft so far. If you look at the draft pool, we are still got a ton of talent on the board here. I like making this filter you can see both the pitchers and the hitters, so then you can just switch between outfielders and pitchers and stuff, sort by any category. If any of you guys don't know how to do that, it's pretty easy. You just go to customize and make all those things, and then you make sure you save it to global, because then you can do it in all your different things. So I have these as my views here. We got the overall, multi, and then that I use most often, and then the 3 for pitching: overall, draft, and minors. Overall, draft, minors for position players, and then I got my catchers ones. The draft history, which just has all this stuff on the right side for the, if you go back, you can look at the old drafts under draft history tab here. And then my export, I'll explain in a different video. And I got my defensive tabs and then my chemistry tab. So really like having all those different filters. Makes it really easy to look over those players. Anyways, that's it for this video. I'll post it, and then we'll see next video if we'll have a little seasonal breakdown or maybe finish the draft.